What is up guys, Alex here, and today I want to make a short review of this sample library I received from KeepForest. And KeepForest is a new sample library developer who makes, contact libraries and sample libraries for trailer music, Not necessarily orchestral music, but the more hard-hitting electronic trailer music, And yeah, they just released this new one, which is called Evolution Atlantica, and it's pretty much the sequel of their first library, Evolution Dragon, which is awesome. And this one is great as well, and it's much more niche though, and I'm going to explain to you why I think it's quite niche, and what I mean by that in this review. And by the way, this review is subjective, this review is based on my subjective opinion of this library, so there are things you might agree with and things you might not agree with, depending on your opinion, because opinions are subjective and people on the internet tend to forget that. So I thought of making this short disclaimer before we start. So anyway, the first thing we're going to do is analyze this very short demo I wrote with this library, and it's 80% sounds from Evolution Atlantica, and then we're going to check it out a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you about the library and what I think about it, and about the price, etc. So the first thing you're going to notice is that this demo is very different from all the tracks I posted before on this channel and all I made before. It's not orchestral at all, it's much more electronic sound design based. So it's not necessarily my style, which, makes it not the best thing I ever wrote. But anyway, it's good to showcase this library, I think. So I'm going to play it in 3, 2, 1. So that was the sound of Evolution Atlantica, and this library, like what you heard, was at least 80% Evolution Atlantica. Then I had a little bit of a percussion and orchestra below everything, but the gist of it, so this. This is Evolution Atlantica, and below that we had this. And these are all the libraries I use. So the thing about Evolution Atlantica is that, as you heard, it's very aggressive, and the sounds, they are very processed and curated and well layered and very complex in such a way that I think they define and they shape the character of your track to the point where it's almost impossible to use them in an anonymous way, as background sounds in your tracks. At least it was for me, especially with orchestra. I wasn't able to put these sounds in the background of an orchestral track. Instead, the only thing I could do is use these sounds in the foreground and put an orchestra in the back, because they're so powerful that I think this library is mostly aimed towards people who make aggressive, hard-hitting sound design electronic trailer music, rather than people who make orchestrated music who want electronic sounds for the background. So, yeah, consider that. At least that's the impression it gave me, So I don't think I'm going to use this library in every track I make, because nowadays I make more orchestral stuff. But there are some sounds in it that I believe I will use, very, very frequently. And I'm talking about the trailer hits specifically. There are many categories of sounds. Honestly, there are alarms, bends, booms, trailer hits, drops, brams, pulses, which are great, reverse effects and risers, and transformation effects and shutters, which are very interesting. And we're going to look at all of these. So, for example, the trailer hits sounds like this. They're amazing, and you can hear there's lots of details in them, and that's fucking awesome, because it's rare to have such detailed sounds inside a library like this, and I have many of these libraries, you know. I have purchased them through the years, but it's very rare for me to come across a sample library with this degree of detail and complexity in its samples. And that's a very amazing thing about Evolution Atlantica and Evolution Dragon as well. But the thing is that it's also a double-edged sword because this degree of complexity and detail, sometimes it may be too much, and maybe sometimes you might want to use a simple sound as a layer for something, or use a simple sound to put it in the background of your track, and you cannot almost find simple sounds in this library. So these sounds here, they when you use them in your track, they kind of shape the track because, yeah, they are filled with details. So that's the thing I love about this library, but also the thing I dislike a bit because it doesn't give me the freedom to do simple things at times. So, you decide if it's a good thing or not, but for me it's both. So then we have the Brahms, which, like, this is fucking insane, you know? Amazing. Like, I'm not a sound designer, you know, I'm not, like, I know sound design a bit, but I'm not a huge sound designer. So when I hear stuff like this, my brain goes like, what the fuck? How the hell did they manage to create this sound, you know? And if you're the type of person who doesn't know anything about sound design, getting a library like this is a good deal because it helps you into unlocking those doors, you know, into being able to use these sounds into your tracks without having to learn sound design. But honestly, like, I learned a bit of sound design through my career, but still, these sounds, even if I know a little bit of how they're created, like, the professionality with which they were created, like the cleanness of the sound, etc., and all the details inside them are really overwhelming and amazing to hear. So I fucking love this side of this library. Then we have the pulses. Sorry, for the pulses, I'm going to show you the pulses folder. So these are the pulses. And you see there are some which are called full mix, and then we have layers. So the layers are basically the layers of the full mixes. So maybe if you only want a single sound or a single, layer of all of this pulse we're hearing now, you can, see if you can find it into the separated layers. And the good thing is that these layers are available for each pulse, so each pulse has been layered and separated that way, so you can either use the full pulse or use just a single sound out of it, That's a great thing that they did here, and not all libraries do this, and I wish they did, so props to KeepForest for nailing this correctly. And these pulses are all in 90 BPM and in the key of D, but I think like there are contact patches of these pulses. And yeah, I forgot to say this library comes in two formats. So it comes from in the wave format, you can use wave file like I did here, but you also can use the correspondent contact patches, these ones. And yeah, there must be a patch about pulses somewhere here, but anyway, yeah, contact trash. Anyway, yeah, what I wanted to say is, if I ever find the pulses preset, no, there's actually no pulses preset. Oh no, yeah, there is. It's this one. So I'm quite sure, like, if we check this pulses preset out, we're going to be what the hell isn't contact responding? Okay, so what I wanted to show you guys is, if you want to use the pulses in a more elastic way, maybe you're not having a project loaded at 90 BPM, you have a 100 BPM. I think that if you have a different BPM and you use the contact patch of the pulses, it's going to match the BPM of your song automatically. And you can also change the pitch of the pulses with these key switches here. Yeah, so yeah, the pulses can be managed even with contact, with the contact patch they created. Anyway, then we have what type of sounds we have, which I haven't talked about. I think the risers. So let's check out the risers, for example, in this part, which I processed them a little bit, but they sound like this. So these are the more simple risers I could find into the library, but there are some, you know, more interesting ones as well, like this, for example. So yeah, like there are some particular sounds into the risers folder as well, and then there are some reversed, you know, tonal sound like the one we heard here. And yeah, that's it for the risers. And another type of sound I wanted to talk about are the whooshes. These are amazing, you know, because they kind of move, you know, the panning of these whooshes is quite dynamic, and this is what makes them feel more alive, more, you know, interesting to hear. So using these will enhance your track in terms of space already. And there are multiple categories. There are normal whooshes, there are whoosh hits, and whatever whooshes, which are these. Then there's a type of sound I haven't talked about yet, which are the shutters. Like the name suggests, like these are great for creating transitions. And then we have the transformation effects, which are things like this. Like honestly, I'm not sure how I would use this, you know, how I would go about using these sounds inside a, you know, musical track. They sound like Transformers doing stuff, you know, but it's really amazing that you have such a, you know, wide reservoir of sounds to use, you know, and these sounds are also, you know, things that you cannot hear and you cannot find in every single library. So this library is quite niche for this reason, you know. Then there are other types of transforming effects. So yeah, quite interesting stuff. The last thing I want to talk about is the synthesizers and, you know, the contact patches. So let's check out, yeah, the synthesizers, these ones. So this is really simple stuff. It has a quite, you know, I didn't process this, and that's why it sounds a little bit crude, but whatever, you know, in the context, it sounded a bit okay. But yeah, what I want to talk about is how the synths and basses, etc. are handled. And these are only available with the contact patches, I think. And this is what the graphical user interface looks like. There is this giant knob in it, which kind of shapes the sound or changes the sound when you move it a little bit. So, for example, sorry. Yeah, it changes it a little bit. I'm not sure what it's doing, honestly. I mean, it might be linked to different parameters here, like all the different effects in here or here. But anyway, you can enable it or disable it with this, thing here. Anyway, in the synth, you have the ADSR controls, and this, if you do not know what they are, these are basically the foundation to, for synthesis. And I'm going to maybe make a video about them in the future. Because if you understand, if you grasp the concept of ADSR, you can already start to create some interesting sounds and demystify all these knobs. But anyway, that's not what I want to talk about today. Let's proceed with this synth patch. So we have the ADSR, then we have this glide setting here, which is basically, determines the legato time between one note and the other, and you can also disable it and play two notes together. If you enable it, you can only play one at a time, and it's going to have that legato slide. And then we have this stereo slider here, which makes you, make the sound more mono or more stereo. It's basically a stereo imager, you will call it, I think. And then we have this part, which is the motion part, and in here we have all the effects, the filter, distortion, saturation, screamer pedal, I think, delay, lo-fi. I haven't used these actually. Interesting. Then we have a compressor, an EQ, and reverb. I actually prefer, though, to process my synth sounds outside of this, Especially if, like in this case, you do not have a way to change the wavetable inside the same patch. So, for example, say I created all of my effects and, effects preset. I think there is no way. Oh no, yeah, there is a way to save the presets here. Just found out, sorry. So here there is a save function, so I can save the preset of the effects or load it. This is actually pretty cool, nice. And yeah, but I prefer to process them outside because I'm more used to using FL Studio's effects and my plugins. So yeah, but you can also do that here. So along with the synthesizers, you have the different effects. Then we have this step sequencer here, which I didn't use because honestly I think it's quite confusing, even this I prefer to do it outside with volume automation. Then we have a gate, pen control, and filter control. So you can, with this step sequencer, you can modulate the filters and the volume depending, and you can create interesting transgates, I guess. Then we have a modulation page, which I didn't use, but this is basically LFOs. And I'm going to talk about LFOs in the same tutorial where I'm going to talk about maybe ADSR. But yeah, like you have all the freedom, like normal synthesizers, to do whatever you want, I guess. Although, like, it's not like a synthesizer, like there are no wavetables. You have, like, the thing that is playing here is a sample, I think, a wave sample or a collection of wave samples. And the thing I didn't like is that they're limited in range. With a normal synthesizer, you wouldn't have a range limit. You could use all the octaves of the keyboard, but in here you can use from here. Sorry, in this you can use from here to here without going over. And that's kind of limited, If we want to treat this like a synth, we want to have the full freedom, maybe. At least I do. So while the graphical user interface is pretty neat and it has all the different, functionalities, you still have that pitch range limit, which I'm not a fan of. And one thing I would love is if there was a way to change, like, since this is not like it's not using wavetables. Maybe it's impossible, but it would be nice if there was a way to change the wavetable without having to change the contact patch altogether. Because say, for example, I set my ADSR, all the settings here and here and here. It would be cool if I could change just the source sound, so this, without having to go in the synths folder and, you know, opening a different patch. Because when you open a different patch, all your settings that you set up before get cancelled, you know, and you have to load them back in here and in here. But I see there is no way to load back the ADSR and the glide and the stereo functions. So I wish there was such, you know, maybe a way to do that. Maybe there will be an update for that. I don't know. Or maybe there is in the full version of this contact library a way to do it, because this is pretty much the beta version which I used to make the demo. Anyway, but you know, the sounds are quite cool actually. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they're quite simple but effective, I'd say. And one sound that really surprised me is the guitar, which is this. Sorry, I muted it before. So this is the guitar. Which is a sampled guitar. It's not the same as using, you know, a live recorded guitar, but I think you can do, like, if you spend some time on it, you can do pretty cool stuff. In here I did an arpeggio, which sounds a little bit I mean, it's not the best arpeggio ever and not 100% realistic, but it's still a cool, you know, guitar tone, and you can use it, like, especially for sustained stuff. It's amazing. If you have to write, you know, palm mute power chords, maybe it's not the best thing, because, like, it doesn't sound like an actual palm mute. But you know, if you layer this along with other stuff, it's not like you can actually use it and nail and get a pretty, you know, good sound. So this is what the guitar and the browns, etc. sound like together. Sorry. This. And with the rest. So when it's covered like that with a lot of stuff, it's not that bad. And actually, it's also like my fault that I haven't spent too much time into making this guitar the most beautiful guitar it can be. But it's a good thing that you have that guitar patch, and honestly an extra that most sample libraries like this do not have. So the cool thing about Atlantica, I guess, like, to wrap up this review, is the fact that it has a very vast amount of sound, very vast reservoir of sound, in terms of both the number of the samples but also the typology of the samples, you know. So if you only have, for example, an orchestral library and you want some more electronic elements, while, like I said, this might not fit every single song you make, this provides you with a lot of stuff. So that's a good thing. The quality of the you know, the trailer effects is amazing. The quality of the synthesizers and the basses and the guitars here is, I mean, it's not the best. I'd give it, you know, a 6 out of 10, but for the trailer stuff, I would give 8 out of 10, with no problems, you know. And so the price of this library is actually, I think right now, since it's still not out, it will be released on the 31st of March. And before the release, there is a discount on every library. You know, when they publish libraries, they pre-release them, and you can buy them before at a limited price, discounted price. And in this case, I think the discounted price is $119, I think, while the full price is $199. So almost, pretty much, you know, $200. And honestly, I think it's quite expensive, but not, like, it depends on what you want to do, you know. If you're going to use this library 100%, then $200 is fucking amazing deal, because like this library is filled with quality stuff. Instead, if you only want to use it, 20%, 30% of it, maybe $200 is probably too much. And I would have loved if they sold, this library in 2 editions, because in my example, I'm not going to use the synthesizers and the guitar, etc., but I'm likely to use the trailer effects. So a cool thing they could have done is they could have maybe sold 2 versions. So the full version, which comes with the contact patches and the trailer samples, etc., and not limited, but how to say, a more simple version which came at a lower cost, but only included the trailer effects. So, I don't know, Evolution Atlantica trailer effects and Evolution Atlantica complete bundle or something like that, Because that, I think, will be a better deal for the for the people who only want to use a small part of this library instead of using the synthesizers as well. So, but that's only my thinking, All in all, I think this is one of those libraries where you spend those bucks, but you do not end up regretting it, because most of it is quality stuff. So I think, like, if you make sound design trailer music, you should get it right away. If you make orchestral music and you don't just want simple background elements, know that these are no simple elements. These are protagonists. So when you use them in your tracks, they're going to take over. So if you want to use only them, if you only want to use them as a background element, I'm not sure if it's worth it to get it for you. But if you want to get this library, you should do it right away, right now, because the cost is lower, because it's not released yet. And also at this time, I think there is a discount on Evolution Dragon, which is the other library, the other sample library from KeepForest, and that one is much more universal, much more, easy to fit in whatever setting and whatever genre you're making, and it's discounted, and it costs a little bit less, I think, than Atlantica. So, yeah, I think KeepForest is doing an amazing job, honestly, and props for the guy behind it, which I think is a single person who created all of this, and yeah, so that's it for this sample library review. By the way, if you have questions about this sample library or other stuff, or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section of this video. And that's it for today, I guess. Alex out.